Hi, Becki. Welcome to the Legacy Life podcast and this Awakening Legacy series. I'm so excited to have you on here to talk about your chapter in the Awakening Legacy book.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for bringing this together.
Oh, it's great to have you here. And so I'm going to kick us off with a question, which is, how would you sum up your chapter in a sentence so people have a sense of what it's about and what they might get out of it?
Interesting. I would say my chapter is an insight or an invitation to a new way of thinking and feeling about grief. It's an invitation to see a different perspective on grief and explore disconnection rather than that sense of grief. So yes.
Great. Thank you so much. So what attracted you to this project, this Awakening Legacy book, which for anybody listening, just so you know, we didn't know it was going to be called Awakening Legacy, right? We knew it was about legacy. We didn't have a title when we started this. So just so that you know, this has been a real kind of soul-led journey. It's been a real exploration and organic process of seeing what stories were wanting to be told, what was wanting to come through. So, and I know for some people might start with the title and know exactly what the title of their book is going to be at the beginning, but we didn't know. And the title came from the stories. And it's been a real energetic, visceral kind of journey with writing this book. So I just wanted to flag that up. So yeah, what brought you to the project, do you feel?
Do you know what? I'm very in tune with the little signs that the universe tends to give us. And you and me were put in contact a few days before my dad's anniversary. Sorry, before my dad's birthday. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is always, that and his anniversary is always a time when legacy is not necessarily thinking about it as legacy, but he's on my mind, and also how I'm choosing to live my life is on my mind, especially around that time where I get very reflective. So when I had the conversation with you and I didn't know anything about legacy being this, I didn't know about this legacy project yet, I got full body goosebumps as soon as I heard, because I thought this is happening 3 days before my dad's birthday. This is happening at a time when I'm starting to reflect again on what am I doing here? What is my purpose? And I think what really drew me to it was the opportunity to share and potentially inspire other people to see things differently in challenging times. And to know that there is a way to move through challenging times and to live with purpose, because that invitation invited me to do something on purpose, with purpose around. And that's exactly what happened. I just went, oh yes, I really want to be part of this.
Yes, I love that. An invitation to do something on purpose with your purpose. Wow.
Got them again.
Oh, yeah. I just went, oh, the goosebumps started arising for me with that. Absolutely. Oh, and it's so interesting what you say about those anniversaries. So anybody who's listening who has experienced loss or grief, those anniversaries of our loved ones' birthdays and those anniversaries of when they died as well, and when they passed, like you say, it does bring up that reflection, doesn't it? It brings up, you know, that, yeah, that reflective time. And it's interesting us having this conversation right now, because it's a time for me, it's just a few days before the anniversary of my baby's death, right, which is on Halloween, and his birthday is on the 4th of November. Okay, so it's a similar time. This is such synchronicity, and I hadn't realized that was the case with your dad's birthday, that we were speaking just a few days before.
Yeah.
And these times, you know, it like you say, it brings up this invitation to look at, like, why am I here? What is my purpose? What good can come from the impact that that person had on my life, you know, and the way they lived their life, and the gifts that they brought to me, and the people that you know, were around them. And I mean, it also makes me think it's also Black History Month this month. And on Saturday, I went to an event. And again, you know, events like that make us think about our purpose, like, and what can we learn from the past that can fuel the future in a positive way, you know, and can help us step deeper into our purpose and our legacy. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's a really, maybe a too gentle term for what we're talking about, but I call them nudges that are going, hello, you know, here we go again. You know, life is short. What are you doing with it? What are you doing? Are you happy? What are you doing? If you're not happy, something needs to change. What's your impact? What are you doing here? You know, are you just moving through life without really thinking about it? And that's definitely what I did for a long, long time.
Yeah. I'm just writing some notes, because there's such juice coming out of this conversation already, and we've only begun a few minutes. I love it.
Best kind of conversation.
Yeah. And those nudges, like you say, and I think it's a beautiful, gentle way of saying it. Another word came to mind, as well as nudges, which is touch points. You know, these anniversaries are kind of reminders and touch points, and times, that encourage us, nudge us to come back to that place of reflection, of checking in. It's a check-in point as well, of checking in with, am I still on course? You know?
And I think it's really interesting that those anniversaries, although they're reflective and are potentially looking back, they are very much bringing us into the present moment. And I think that is something that we don't appreciate. Is, you know, everyone says stop looking at the past, stop worrying about the past. Actually, those moments give us an opportunity to be extremely present and move forward in ourselves, more connected. And so there is gifts to those tremendously, terribly hard times.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh. So tell us a little bit more, without giving away your whole chapter. Tell us a little bit about, you know, if somebody was to be reading your chapter, well, there's a couple of questions here, I suppose. The first one is, what do you feel the essence of it is? Like, what do you think people will get out of it?
Perspective. I see it. It's so personal, isn't it? The chapters, it's suddenly the realization that it's going to be out there for someone to read.
Yes, it is, very soon.
Yes.
22nd of November, folks, you can read it.
She's amazing. It's very much an opportunity, because to be able to think of grief not only as death,
yes,
but also as to see grief as more of a disconnection, to see it as loss and disconnection, not only about death, but
Yeah.
also an invitation to see that legacy, because my chapter is called The Legacy of Grief, to see that legacy is not something that comes from death. It comes from life and living on purpose.
Yes.
I feel like I could say so much. Can't. Read the chapter on the 22nd of November.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is great. The legacy comes from life. And I think I mentioned in the introduction, and I know other people mentioned in their chapters as well, particularly Lee, I think it is our legacy is happening right now in every single moment of our life.
And it's never too late to work that out.
Yeah.
Because it's taken me a while.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's never too late. But also, all of that learning, we can share anytime what we have got from the difficult times, the fun times. We can share that learning with our children. We can share that learning with our family, with I know you have like a whole big love movement, where you're sharing your gifts through that. Anytime we can connect more deeply with our purpose and inquire about what is that, we can ask ourselves anytime, what is it? And what's important to me? Am I living my life in the way I want to be living? And if not, what am I going to do about it?
Exactly.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
That was a big thing for me, realizing that.
Yeah. So what would you say the themes are that are coming through your chapter? Because I'm just thinking, how do we talk about your chapter without telling people everything that's in it? And it's like, well, there are themes that come through it, right?
Yeah, definitely there is disconnection. And anyone, I write my blog for Big Love Movement, and I talk about disconnection a lot because it's something I've experienced physically and emotionally from myself, let alone to the people around me. A disconnection of physical and mental health and well-being of myself.
Yeah.
And I feel as a society we can be very disconnected from that ourselves, but also from each other's. And so the theme that's coming through with the chapter will definitely be about disconnection, and the emotions that we relate to grief and loss are how they actually play out within our life, but how they have a light and a dark, how there's a light and a dark side to everything. And in the sense where things, when I say dark, I'm feeling when things can feel quite heavy, uncomfortable and hard. And when they feel a little bit lighter, that you can see that shift, you can see that there's a way forward. And so I think there is very much that exploration of what disconnection means and how it feels and how we move through that to be more connected, and to perhaps invite people to appreciate what purpose is, because I think it's something that we band around a lot, but actually what I'm focusing on is not necessarily living with purpose, but living on purpose. My actions I'm doing things consciously, because I spent 2 decades, I feel, living very unconsciously and very disconnected from, not physically from people around me, but emotionally and mentally. And so that's, disconnection, reconnection, grief, and perspective, the opportunity to live on purpose.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, I know in your chapter, at the end of your chapter, you share an exercise there, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So, for people who are thinking, oh, this sounds interesting, what do people generally get out of doing and connecting with that exercise? Like, what does it make available for people?
I think presence, for a start, which
Mm-hmm.
is, we live in a very fast-paced world. It's only going to get more as we get more advanced. It's, and and our stress levels increase, our resilience we need to empower ourselves. And I think the exercise is a very simple practice of becoming more present, becoming present in the moving moment. And I think that's what the exercise, I tried to really bring across in that exercise, that presence is constantly shifting. So it's about bringing you into the moment and moving with that, and being able to see things from a new perspective, being able to look up and forward and move with the rhythm of life and not feel so pulled back. I feel like it is a good invitation to shift that perspective and think, okay, this is the first step to living on purpose.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I love that, you know, that first step, guiding people, you know, with that. And that's something that is throughout this book, that you know, like Beckie, other chapters also have exercises or journal prompts and things like that to really support you, the reader, and you, the listener, to connect with your purpose, you know, with your legacy, with what it is that you are calling forth for your life, and the lives you want to touch as well. Yeah. So I was just thinking what to talk about next. Is there anything that you particularly want people to know? Like, if you could leave people with one thing, what would that be?
I guess for me, it's probably the insight to what my legacy is starting to look like, and what you know, I've touched on, I'm now living my life on purpose, but how did that start? What does that mean? And so I think it's important that I give a little bit of background, I guess, to the chapter, or to me, in the sense that I mentioned, I felt for the last for about 2 decades, I felt very disconnected. And this was looking back, realizing I was pretty much consumed by grief, depression, guilt, and the shame that is attached to, because it's never one thing, it's never one thing. There's all this multifaceted amazingness to our well-being. And it was very obvious to me through that time that my physical health was becoming unwell because my mental and emotional health wasn't great. And the nudge that I mentioned in 2018 was when my stepdad passed away. Now, that was quite sudden, but it was also 21 years after my dad had passed away when I was 13. And being an adult, when this had happened, that real reflection came back, of course. And I did ask myself, what am I doing? Like, you've been told this before, life is short. You've been shown, you've experienced this. I was going back through the emotions I'd felt as a teenager. And it's when I made the biggest shifts. I think I'd already started to change my lifestyle to try and implement and live, but I didn't know that I wasn't living on purpose. And it was in 2018, I went, what am I doing? Am I happy? What, you know, my relationships were a mess because my relationship myself was a mess. 2019, I resigned from my 15-year career. 2020, I started my own business in a pandemic, Big Love Movement. And it's about creating a movement, not only of the body, because I do share yoga, mindfulness, meditation, and breath work, but it's about a shift in society towards a more connected and more self-aware society, so that individuals, we can live with a more holistic appreciation of our well-being. And especially as we move into, as I say, it's like we're up leveling the stress. There's going to be even more distractions. There's more going on in the world. And it's that time to educate, inspire, and empower, which are my 3 values, to reconnect people to themselves, but also to others. And I think it's beautiful because I believe, if I'm allowed to share, that there are similar themes that are coming throughout the book.
Absolutely, completely, you can. And you know, this is that synchronicity and that synergy, isn't it? So we were having a conversation about the book, about the themes that were coming out, which are to inspire, to educate, and to empower, right? And Becki says, they're exactly my values that are behind my Big Love movement. And we were like, wow.
They were post-its on my vision board. And she was, I think it was Sarah, the other Sarah, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Yeah.
I was, as she was saying the words, I was like, she's not going to say that next word. She's not. She did. And I was like, do I share this? Because I've got goosebumps again, that like, yeah, this is what we're meant to be doing. This is the movement.
Yeah, this is it. And it is, and having this openness to explore and to follow the nudges and the breadcrumbs of where life wants to take you and the opportunities that arise, just like you did with this book. Like, you didn't know it was going to be completely in alignment with your values before you said yes to it, before you followed the goosebumps, you followed the nudges, and then, you know, and then we discover that the values of the book are completely in alignment with the values of you know, your business. You know, it's just like, wow. And it's this, you know, it fascinates me that, because it's a very non-linear way of working, and I think a lot of people probably find very challenging, actually. And I feel it's also quite a feminine way of working, and bringing in the masculine and feminine approaches, really, of the intuition, the alignment piece with the, you know, the ideas and the thoughts coming together within our bodies and getting expressed through this book, basically.
And just to give everyone an advance on the fact that my chapter is definitely not linear at all. It's not written in, you know, there's nothing linear about it. It definitely is an explorative chapter. But yeah, so, and also just to quickly let you know that I don't think me and you even knew each other in January.
No.
But in January, or maybe it was December, probably was December, because it was one of my goals for 2021 was to have my writing published.
I love it. I love it.
Like, and you know, so everyone knows, it wasn't like we sought each other out. You kind of put this almost like this bat signal out.
I did.
Calling in authors, and it was through other authors that we came together. So that's another synchronicity. But there you go.
Absolutely. And, you know, I talk about in the introduction to the book, I talk about a bit about how the book came together. And like you say, it was that I was trying to do it in a quite a linear way, and it was not happening. And like you say, I put the bat signal out. I went, okay, universe, okay,
bring them to me.
Like, okay, energies, my energy to your energy. This is like, who are the souls who are supposed to be in this book? And the book made itself very clear that it has an energy in itself. It has this, it has a spirit to it. And it's been so interesting, this process in the, you know, the number 13 kind of came up, and there was an author who decided that she didn't want to continue the journey. And I was like, oh, we're not going to have 13 chapters anymore. But actually, what is really interesting is that there are 13 souls in this book, and the book's soul is one of them. Yes. You know, it's like there's still that energy of that 13 there, you know, with the energy of this book.
the 12 individuals coming together to tell their own story in whatever way they've chosen, and by bringing that together and you weaving those stories together, it has become its own essence.
Yes,
there it is its own thing. So there's individual chapters, but it's not a book of stories.
Yes, no,
it's a book, and within it you'll go, it's an exploration in itself. And I think that, I can't wait to hold it physically.
I know. And they're interconnected, and they're different parts of a whole, you know. And what is coming out of this is this, this awakening legacy and these random acts of awakening. Like this book can be part of that. This book is a random act of awakening from us to you, right? To the world. But you can all take part in connecting with this sense of random acts of awakening to touch people's lives, to help people remember who they are, why they're here, what their purpose is. We can all give that gift to someone else. I love that.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I think the fact we will all agree as authors, the process of writing our chapter, because it probably wasn't what it initially started out to be, was the awakening for us.
Yes.
So we ourselves were awakening as we wrote the book.
Yeah.
On a whole other level.
Yeah.
And the book in itself, the purpose of the book. So the title is just amazing.
So I just want to check in with you, because you've talked about living on purpose, and you've talked about this sense of awakening and this movement that you have with your business, and this awakening legacy movement that collectively we have ignited, and this book has ignited. And I am a little bit curious, and the listener might be curious as well, like, how was it before? Because you talk about how you felt like you were living unconsciously. So I'm just wondering, what did that look like? Was, because I know that you were very successful in your work, right? So what did it look like?
It's very interesting, because with Big Love Movement, I've explored it more by working with people in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was successful in my career and I chose to leave it to do something completely different. I was in fashion. But looking back through the years, this disconnection I talk about a lot is the fact that I was never fully aware of what was going on in my head, was how it was impacting my relationships, how it was impacting my performance in my job. And I felt like, as successful as I was, there was a limit. And that limit came from self-belief, came from shame and guilt, and of this weight that I was carrying around from things that I hadn't been able to move through and to live with. And that came from trauma and from grief. And in the chapter, I explore grief that isn't death. And I think what my life looked like, I mean, nothing's perfect. However, I live a much calmer, more connected life to myself. I'm much more aware and prioritize my well-being. But before, I did not. There was a lot of alcohol. There was a lot of drugs and partying and bad relationships and toxic relationships, in the workplace, in life in general. And so I just kind of was going through the paces and the motions, and almost, well, physically and emotionally sabotaging myself constantly in this cycle of just guilt. And that all came from these challenges of having with my mental well-being. And they're not gone, they're not magicked away but I am now far more aware of my emotions and how they impact my health physically and my relationships physically and emotionally, and how everything is so intertwined, interconnected. And so I feel more alive. And I mention this in the chapter, so I'm not giving anything away, but I feel like I'm finally getting to know who it is I am becoming. That is something I didn't even care who I was. I was my job, I was my relationship, I was a daughter. That was pretty much it. Or I was the daughter of someone whose dad, my dad, I was the person whose dad died when she was a teenager.
Yeah.
and going, actually, who am I? What do I like? What do I love? What fills me up? What do I want to do? What am I doing? Who do I want to help? What do I want to, what impact? So yeah, it feels very cloudy, and my memories, and this is why my chapter couldn't be linear, but my memory is quite distorted from over those years. So I now feel like I'm bringing things together, seeing things differently.
Lovely, beautiful. I get this real sense of awakening on that other level that you mentioned, you know, through sharing this in your chapter. Yeah, I'm so excited for everyone who's gonna to read that. And you know, I have to say, I was deeply moved reading your chapter, deeply moved. And for me, when I read it, I felt such a sense of release, actually. There was a real releasing that happened, and some tears. So I'm going to pre-warn you guys, if you're going to be reading this, yeah, and that's okay, you know, that I for me personally, and it would be, you know, be different for different people, but it allowed me, it's almost like it gave me permission to release something for myself, which was beautiful.
Oh, I thank you so much for that feedback, and I really am happy to hear that you felt that release too, because there was definitely a lot of releasing. I'm a firm believer in writing by hand as a way of releasing, and that's why I journal so much, but also that release of tears. That's an emotional release, and to invite to that permission slip comment, that's, yeah, there was a lot of that, because there was things that I've wrote that no one will have read these things. Yeah. I hadn't potentially written them in that way before. And so the release that was happening as I wrote that chapter, and to then almost have that ripple effect of then you feeling that release, that able to go, that kind of decompression.
Yeah. So yeah, exciting. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming today and sharing. And so it kind of feels like, I feel like we're there with this conversation. So we're going to finish up. So if anybody is wanting to read this book, it will be available from the 22nd of November 2021 on Amazon and in all good bookshops. So you'll be able to get it wherever you are in the world. You'll be able to you know, buy a copy of it, hold it physically in your hand and read it, and use it, you know, to support you with those times of transition, those times of reflection, and you know, really connecting with your sense of your purpose, and your legacy. There's so much within it. And not only that, but you can also connect with our website and the Random Acts of Awakening. You know, you can connect deeper with that through our website and our page, Awakening Legacy page as well. So yeah, you can look us up. And so you'll find beneath the podcast, you'll see in the details in the description, if you want to connect with any of that, you can click on those links. Becky's details will also be there. So if you want to know more about the Big Love Movement, you can click there as well for that. Okay. So enjoy, and we hope to see you again soon.